Okay, Catherine, thank you so much for being a guest today on our podcast. We're excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. I say let's dive right into it. Let's give our listeners an idea of who you are. So, what first drew you into executive search, and what's kept you passionate about it over the years?
I'll admit it, I totally just fell into it. I never in a million years thought I'd be doing what I've been doing for the past 20 years. It was just not even on my radar.
Mhm.
So I live in Atlanta now, but I grew up in California, went to UCLA, and I actually spent the first part of my career working at a large Hollywood talent agency. So working with, musicians, putting them into film and TV, doing a lot of just that talent agency work. So I kind of
Yeah,
thought that was what I'd be doing for my career, honestly.
yeah,
I like to say I kind of came to my senses and bolted out of Hollywood to find some sanity, and
yeah.
landed somehow landed here in Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And was just kind of puttering around a little bit, trying to figure out what to do with my life. I call it my quarter life crisis moment in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine kind of said, Catherine, you really should look at this world. You should try recruiting. And I got into it. I actually joined Lucas Group. And kind of the bug bit me basically, and I have never been able to look back. I absolutely love it. So it's a blast working with people, helping them guide them in their careers. And it's kind of all the stuff I loved doing when I was in Hollywood, working with people, doing a lot of stuff, helping guide them. But I'm working with like really smart, incredibly intelligent, and successful people and helping businesses grow. It's a blast.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I actually have a funny thing I want to mention, but while we're on this topic first, can you give our listeners an idea of who your typical client and candidate are? Because you do work with extremely smart people, right? And so I'd love for you to mention that first.
Absolutely. So most of my work is in the accounting and finance space.
Mhm.
So the work that I do is I like to say I like to work with companies going through something, some sort of transition. Lots of private equity, even public companies and private entities here, mostly here and around the Atlanta market, but some are kind of across the Southeast as well. I do predominantly director level and above. So where I have a lot of fun is working with whether it be a CEO or CFO when they're trying to build out their team, whether it be preparing for a transaction or post-transaction or IPO, or maybe it's just a reboot of the accounting and finance function. So I kind of get in, I like building teams. So that's why I work quite a bit across the spectrum of accounting and finance, helping teams kind of elevate and scale their organizations.
That is awesome. That's perfect. I think that gives a good base for the rest of the podcast. So thank you for filling us in. And then the one thing I'll go back on is when you mentioned you kind of fell into it, you love talking to people. I get this meme all the time of people saying it's like when my teacher told me that I wasn't going to be able to make money or have a job of talking for my career, right? And I talk to recruiters and that's what I do. It's a lot of talking, a lot of conversations, and you actually can do well.
The gift of gab, it can pay.
Yes,
It
it
can pay.
can. It really can. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I love it.
But let's dive into a question here I've got for you. What are the most common mistakes you see executives make during interviews for senior finance or leadership roles?
Are you talking from like a candidate perspective or a client perspective?
Let's do candidate first.
Okay. So on the candidate side, it's interesting. There's a couple things that I always talk with people about, but it amazes to me even like more senior level people don't think it. And it comes down to a level of preparation, frankly. I think a lot of individuals, especially when they've been very successful, think they already have all the answers, right? So they don't do that extra deeper dive sometimes before going in. I'm not talking about like the high level of looking at what the company does and who you're interviewing with. I mean, that's all just kind of basic stuff. I'm talking about going that extra level, really trying to anticipate what's ahead for the company, trying to think through what are the problems that this role it needs to solve. Right, like getting at the crux of what I always say. Hey, what's keeping the hiring manager up at night? You got it. What's that problem? What's that piece? And then on the flip side of that,
Yeah.
a lot of people walk in thinking they have all the answers, honestly. And I tell everybody, look, I'm going to give you a ton of information before you go in. I'm going to tell you everything that I know, help you prepare in the best way that you can. But you need to trust but verify. And in those first part of any type of conversation, don't assume that you know what's going on. Because guess what? All that intake that I did with a hiring manager or a team, that could be totally tossed out the window 30 minutes before they jump on a call with you. So think about thoughtful ways to really get at what that is and what that is in that moment, because it always evolves, especially at these senior levels.
Yeah. I love that. That's so helpful for people to get a good understanding because I think there's a ton of benefit of using not using, but I mean utilizing the knowledge that you have of the company and what they're going through, but then also saying, hey, there could be more, right? There's
Yeah,
more. It's that whole iceberg or glacier thing, right? There's a lot
exactly.
more under the surface, right? That you
Exactly.
can see. So tell me a little bit about the client side, not the candidate side. What's the most common mistake you see there? Because it sounded like you had a thought for both.
Yeah, it's tough. It's every client's a little different in their approach, right?
Mhm.
I think any initial conversation, honestly, if anybody is in that first call with a hiring manager, I always say you can do the job, right? They're not, yes, they're there to kind of check the boxes and learn a little bit more and get a little, just basically verify that what I've shared with them is in fact true. But really, it's a gut check. Can I work with this person? Can I trust this person? So I think sometimes hiring managers go into these conversations really trying to drill like candidates more, really trying, almost like you're trying to figure out why not to move them past the level instead of going in and just trying to see if there's a connection there. Is this somebody that could be in the trenches with you, right? Do they have some experience that maybe I didn't think to even ask, right? Like trying to find out, it's more about kind of soft skills. It's more about problem solving things. It's not always about the resume. And sometimes you got to look beyond the resume to find the right candidate. And I think in that initial call, you kind of get, again, that gut check whether there could be a spark there or not as far as that kind of hiring compatibility is concerned.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this is probably, I mean, it's not like I'm gonna have a lot of sway here either way, but for your clients, right? I mean, I hope that they look at it as, the resume is what's getting the door. It gets you the ability to see the person, but at that point, they should be qualified, right? That's what
Yeah.
you guys do, right? And then they can just look at all that information that you just talked about. I think that's so helpful and so good for people to realize. It's actually really funny because I was just talking to a client yesterday about going through the process, and I really do think some of the processes, depending on the companies, they're really a lot better at weeding people out than they are at sifting and finding the right person, right? They're just trying to push everybody out the door, and then they miss a ton of really great candidates. So,
Exactly. It's not all about the resume, and it's not about finding a perfect resume, especially in a lot of these more dynamic environments that are going through a lot of change. A perfect resume, that person may not have seen much or be able to have the perseverance to get through whatever's ahead, right? And when you're going through growth or challenge or change or turnarounds or transaction prep, right? You got to have some wherewithal too. You got to have seen a few things. And
mhm.
those aren't always perfect resumes. So sometimes you have to look a little bit beyond that and find the right person that happens to have all the skills you need and the personality to persevere and get you through to the other side.
Yeah. I wasn't planning on asking this, so you don't feel like you have to answer for a long period on this one, but is it common that you find a few candidates that really don't hit all the criteria your client is looking for, but you're just like, give this one a shot. Give this one a
Absolutely.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to build that amount of trust with clients, and some of my clients are not going to want that conversation to be had. They're hiring
Right.
me for a very specific reason to find a very specific candidate.
Yeah.
But when you're going through a search, especially in some of these nuanced searches that it is a little bit more soft skill driven or transformation focus, you kind of sometimes those perfect candidates, they don't exist. Let's just be honest here. But
Mhm.
also, you have to you learn through the course of a search, and sometimes you have to kind of wing it and bring somebody in who that's just you had that gut feeling about, right? That maybe it's worth looking at. But sometimes I can do that with certain clients right out of the gate because they trust me enough on day one. But usually it happens about partway through the search. Once you're really not getting the traction, or maybe you're sifting through and having those conversations, and they're learning that maybe what they initially started looking for isn't actually the right fit. And then it's our job to provide more of a consultative approach to go, well, this is what you're telling me you're looking for. Well, let me tell you the why I want to talk to you about this person.
hmm I love that. I love that. It's slightly related, but it's exactly what my wife and I just went through when we were looking for homes,
Hmm.
right? Looking
Yep.
through, we didn't really know exactly what we were looking for, and then we were able to actually get some people that knew what they were talking about, knew the market, knew what was going on. They're like, this is good to know, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of having a recruiter. I hope most people do just trust you and say, okay, Catherine knows what she's talking about, right? She's done this multiple times.
I'm hoping a couple of them at least do, because
Yeah.
sometimes I know what I'm talking about, sometimes I'm winging it, right? Because
Yeah,
the market changes so fast.
it does. It does. But
Mhm.
I mean, obviously you have a very successful background, so it's awesome to have you on here. And I'm curious, kind of shifting gears, but from your perspective, what does a strong first conversation between a recruiter and a candidate look like?
First conversations for me, I just want to learn about the person. I mean, a good recruiter doesn't just start flinging jobs, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's just even if I reached out to somebody about a specific job, I
Mhm.
can't just throw this job at somebody. We're matchmakers. So I my goal is to learn about the motivations of the person I'm talking to. And honestly, whether it's a client or a candidate, it's the initial conversation for any dynamic is about learning about what's going on, what's triggering. Why did you respond to that message of mine? Why today? Right? Especially in my market, which is a fairly small. I mean, people don't respond to me for years, and all of a sudden respond. Well, what's going on now? What's
Yeah.
changed? What's going on? So I think first conversation shouldn't be about like I think that transactional flinging jobs. It needs to be about getting to know each other, being able to say, hey, could this be a good match or not? But how do you don't know that until you really start to get to know somebody, get to know their motivations, their personality, a little bit about their background. I don't even dive into all the resume stuff on day one. I really just kind of want to know where they've been, where they're at today, and what they're thinking about and trying to accomplish in their next move.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people will forget how a lot of candidates will forget how crucial the recruiter is in that matchmaking process because that initial conversation, right? It's really the start of, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really the start of the interview, right? It's the
Yeah,
whole interview process. A lot of people think it starts after once they meet the company, but when you're speaking to the recruiter, when you're speaking to Catherine, you need to know, right, that
yeah.
there's, there's benefits to making sure that you understand what the culture is of the company, and you can really save them time and save your company time as well, so that people aren't starting the interview process just because of numbers.
Yeah,
And
I
Corey.
think it's important for candidates to know too. Recruiters, we're supposed to have your back too. Yeah, we
Mhm.
get paid by the client, but we're here to have their back because,
Yeah.
and whenever I talk to people, I mean, this is a relationship. If I'm not going to place everybody I talk to on the
Yep.
candidate side, I'm not. That's impossible. I would love to say I do, but I don't. So let's just be real
Right.
here.
Yeah.
But guess what? That candidate could become a client,
Hmm.
or it could be a referral source. I mean, so if you're going into these conversations authentically learning about them and presenting yourself and being honest about whether this is a good match or maybe it's something else I'm working on, right? Like that's number one is if I can get the information of what they're looking for, I can better match them up with either what I'm working on today or what I could be working on tomorrow and being very nice, being very like good about the feedback, about being honest about is this worth your time or not? Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go, I'm just not sure. I'll tell you about it, but let me tell you why I'm not sure this is the right match. But what do you think? And a lot of times we end up in the same spot where it's just not the right fit.
Yeah. And that's what I was trying to get to as well as you can save a lot of people a lot of time because you can know both angles. It's like honestly like setting up a friend or a family member on a date, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would never do it if you just thought right off the bat they weren't a good match, right? And
Yeah.
usually they would agree with you, right? I mean, I've tried to set friends up with people and then I'm like, actually, I don't think that's a good fit because of this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, you know me, right?
Like,
So
let's not waste anybody's time. Let's not do it.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Exactly. So I appreciate you entertaining me there and explaining that. And I'm curious, kind of shifting gears again, sorry, just
Yeah. Go
keeping you on
for
your toes, right? But
it.
for executives who feel qualified, but they aren't getting traction in today's market, what adjustments do you most often recommend?
That's tough. It's frustrating, honestly. And I feel for it. I mean, to be honest, it probably has happened to everybody at some point in their career,
Mhm.
right? It's whether you're employed or not, and you're just not feeling like you're getting the traction or getting the attention that you're looking for. I think it's really important to take a step back and have a critical eye, right? Like if you're only looking for a specific title or a specific role, or you sometimes you need to like just pull back a second and ask why. What could it be? And be honest with yourself. A lot of
Mhm.
people I talk to say, hey, I only want to look at CFO roles. Maybe they're trying to take a step up. Well, maybe they should be looking at the number twos as well, because you never know that could evolve into a CFO role, right?
Yeah.
Like you need
Mhm.
to sometimes kind of think outside the box. You need to be honest. But I think too many people think, oh, I can do that job. Well, it's not always about can you do the job? Is that the right match for you? Is it the right environment, the right people? And that's where that critical piece you really have to look at comes into play. Um, really kind of evaluate, hey, what could I be doing different? Where do my strengths line up properly? What is the type of company that could use somebody like me? Going too aggressively out there and just blasting your resume at anybody who will listen, that's not going to get you where you're looking to go. You need to
Yep.
be very strategic and align. Hey, you're a puzzle piece, right? Like I tell people, hey, what makes you different is often the reason why people hire you, right?
Mhm.
So think about what makes you stand out from the pack and think about who the buyer could be for that. And just
Yeah.
think strategically, be critical, be honest, get feedback, whether it's through mentors or other recruiters like myself. Feedback is crucial in these moments. And also on another kind of side note too, I think it's important not to let the process beat you down, right?
Mhm.
Because when you do feel like you're hitting that wall all the time, you may not know it, but it comes out in interviews. It's an energy level, right? It's
Mhm.
sometimes you could say maybe it's desperation of wanting something or just feeling
Yeah.
beat down and it's the no's they compile and it really is an emotional experience to go through this and you're just being rejected. I mean, it doesn't feel good for anybody, right?
Right.
But you got to find a way to pull through it and let it go. Because if you carry that kind of down feeling with you, it's amazing. People sense it. Like I can sense it in conversations that I have. My hiring managers can sense it. So you want to try and find a way when you're looking for a new position to make it something that can be sustainable. Because any senior leader, you might find a job in 90 days, but the reality is it could be 6 to 9 months,
Yep.
maybe longer, right?
Yeah.
So, and finding a job is a full-time job. I mean, that's what I do for a living, right? I find people, it can be a full-time job. Is I monitor my market. I'm talking to people all the time. So I also tell people, hey, like take it in bite-sized pieces, especially if you're employed. You don't need to focus, all these hours every day. Maybe it's an hour a day. If you're unemployed, maybe it's still an hour or two a day, more hours like when you have interviews or prep going on. But sometimes I tell people whether they, especially if they just kind of went through a layoff or maybe this went through a transaction, have some time off. I'm like, find some time to enjoy it too. Because guess what? You're going to have a job soon enough, and you're not going to be able to spend this time with your family or doing personal things that you love to do, or maybe just sitting at a coffee shop. You always wondered what those people do at like, you know, 10,
Right.
11 a.m. that are just reading a book at a coffee. I mean, whatever it
Yeah.
is, find time to find peace in the process too, because that'll help you get through what's kind of a bit of a brutal process when you're kind of stuck not finding what you want to find.
That is such good advice. I love that. I've talked to a few people this week. I mean, I'm usually talking to candidates all day,
Mhm.
every day, right? And I've talked to a few that have been looking for a long time. And I really agree. The energy that you bring when you're bogged down can really affect it. I mean, it's just like when you're talking to a car salesman, right?
Yeah.
You talk to a car salesman and they haven't made money yet. They haven't
Yeah.
got a sale that month, and they're driving, they're chasing that money. You just want to run out of the dealership, right? You want to get out of there as quick as you can. But if it's
Exactly.
somebody if it's somebody that's like, hey, if I land this position or I don't, there is one around the corner, right?
Yeah.
Those are the people that I believe that I have a mentor and he talks to me or coach, he talks to me all the time about if you create value, it'll come. You'll attract
Mhm.
offers, you'll attract attention.
Exactly.
If you're chasing the money, if you're chasing the offer, it will always run away from you.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
exactly.
so I just 100% agree with what you're saying. I think that's so cool. And we really haven't discussed that much in our podcast. So I think that's so helpful for people that are looking and not getting the traction that they want. So thank you for sharing that. Does that spark something else you want to say?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think I always tell people think outside the box a little bit. Like, there's lots of ways to get to your end goal.
Hmm.
So if one path's not working, remember what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? Well,
Yep.
maybe you need to think about a different path, right? And maybe it's not what you thought it was going to be when you dreamed of your career, like when you were looking, ahead. But guess what? You might find something in that process that's invaluable for you and propels you forward. And then on another note is, I would tell people too is remember what this process is like because at some point you're going to be in a job, interviewing, or supporting friends that might be in similar positions, and always be willing to kind of lend a helping hand and network, right? Help people in any way because it's very people are very quick to forget what it's like to be on the job hunt.
Yeah.
So have a moment where you kind of can reflect and appreciate, but remember to pay it forward once you get settled.
Hmm. I like that. I like that a lot, especially because It is so easy to forget, right? And usually the people that I see are most successful are the ones that are they're networking and helping when they don't need an immediate return, right? Because
Exactly.
again, they're not chasing the networking for the money that it's going to give them or for the opportunity it's going to give them. They're doing it, but they know that in the end it'll actually give them a lot of benefit.
Exactly.
It'll help them out. It'll help everybody out. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious, are there any trends right now in how companies are building or restructuring their finance and accounting leadership teams?
At least in my space, it's all about lean and mean, right? Like you need to be able to, yes, if you're a controller, you have your functional kind of area and everything, but you really got to think more broadly as a business leader. You got to know how the impact is on operations. You got to think big picture. You got to be strategic. Um, you don't want to just be in the back corner cranking away, at spreadsheets and doing that. You really need to be thinking as a business partner. And you need to be able to diversify your skill set and not be so narrowly focused because of that lean and mean kind of impact of so many companies out there. And I'm even seeing this in the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, especially with a lot of the automations that are going on, is that roles are becoming a little bit more broad.
Mhm.
So, yeah, being able to operate in a lean and mean environment where it's not just about delegating and managing a team that's doing the work, you also need to know how to do the work yourself and be willing to do it and roll up your sleeves and grind it out when necessary.
Can I dig a little bit on that?
Go for it. Yeah.
Do you find a lot of pushback with that? Because I've seen a lot of great candidates that are very specific on, no, this is exactly what I do, this is what I don't do. Do
Mhm.
you kind of have to coach a little bit on that and be like, look, if you want to be represented, if you want to be seen by this company, you might have to like that seems to be a pretty hard balance because these are very successful people, director, VP, and C-level
Yeah.
executives, right?
Well, I think it's good. You need to know what you do well and how how your puzzle piece fits. So
Right.
you can't turn yourself into somebody who you're not, right? But you also need to think outside the box and think broader, right? And look, if you need to be doing one specific thing, well, maybe there's only certain types of companies that are going to hire you, right? And that, granted, that can be a good thing because if a job opens at one of those like companies, you're a
Yeah.
no-brainer. But if you're looking to broaden out or you're looking to kind of get into more of maybe a mid-sized growth company or PE-backed entity, you need to know how to do more than what your real focus is. You really
Mhm.
need to think broader. And as you go up the ranks in any organization, your role and your scope is going to broaden. So, I see a lot of it where, a CFO might come up through the ranks on the finance and capital market side, but they are eventually going to have to own accounting, right? So
Yeah.
how do you know how to do it? I'm not saying you're going to be a CPA but you got to know how to do it. You got to be exposed to that. Yes, you're going to have a CPA or a chief accounting officer that's going to be your strong right hand because you probably know enough to be dangerous. But you need to know what it means. You need to know what good looks like. And you know what? You need to be willing to get your hands dirty in the GL as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I such good advice, and it's just really nice. It's different points of view than we've had, and so it's really helpful. I think our clients are going to love seeing this, and our listeners.
Awesome.
So finally, what's the best way for potential clients for you, potential candidates for you to learn more, to follow you, to reach out, and learn more from Catherine?
Yeah, LinkedIn, obviously. That's probably
Yeah,
the best form. I mean, it's
yeah,
like I probably overpost. So if you want to get my musings out there, they're always out there.
yeah.
But there's a Calendly link even on my LinkedIn profile. I'm always willing to have conversations. I don't care if you're in the Atlanta market or not, right? Like I think good conversations can always lead to great things. And I'm always willing to hop on a quick call with anybody, for any reason, right? Whether it's just a quick intro call or maybe it's leading towards a client or candidate or both type of relationship.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate you've been an amazing guest. Thank you for your time and for sharing all your insights.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you.